Enjoy a time to get to know Christian and Samantha Delgado. We'll hear about how they came to Christ, how they met, and what life is like as a ministry couple. I'm your host, Aaron Miller, pastor of equipping at Grace Baptist Church in Santa Clarita, California. Welcome to Magnify. Do you not like the sound of your voice?
I hate the sound of my voice, actually.
Samantha, stop. Do you like the headphones or no?
Oh, I don't care about the headphones.
Sarah
actually,
didn't.
These are nice headphones.
I really like the way I feel like I have the best hearing because I get to hear all of you so clearly.
You are a no headphones person, Sarah. Ingrid was a no headphones person. Anna Berthium was a no headphones person.
So it just seems to be the female trend.
It is. Pamela was a one ear, one out person. So I don't know. It does seem to be the females primarily. I don't know.
Can I hear you without it?
Well, yeah.
Well, then what's it for?
It helps you focus your thoughts, I think.
Oh, I need
It helps
that.
you kind of sound how you're coming across. And if there's any ambient noise out and around, it just focuses the conversation.
Can you hear me breathing? That's what I really want to know.
The thing is, what we will never know is all that Cam hears when he's editing, because he's taking out like the throat gurgles and the like if you're drinking coffee and you're like
Well, I just listened to Cam and Sarah's episode,
We did.
and when you asked us, I was like, I don't want to have a distinguishing thing that Cameron goes back to edit. I want to just be a normal person.
He was laughing out
Without an
loud
edited.
at those parts.
no. There's no way not to have a thing.
It's so funny.
Yeah. So
It came into your
thanks
mind.
a lot, man, because
I'm
we were
sorry.
saying some really profound things. Could you just control yourself, please?
You know what's funny is
I
I
don't
was
even
going to
know
tell
that I
you,
coughed.
don't cough.
Well, welcome to the last episode Christian Delgado will ever be on.
I don't even remember coughing. When did I cough?
You're not even in
Oh.
control of your physical faculties. It's embarrassing.
That is embarrassing.
My thing is that every time I talk, he's going to have to turn down the volume.
No.
Every time Sammy's there,
That's funny.
just lower it.
Gosh.
Can I get one cough out then?
Turn your
I just
head.
wanna- I just
Turn.
wanna clear.
Just
Turn
yeah, why does it have to be
away.
directly into the mic?
That was not a cough. That was a.
I
have,
didn't. I promise you, I didn't have
I have
a
a
cough.
slug in my throat. I have to get it out of there.
That's what I felt like.
Well, let's just jump into it, folks. I think you can tell we're having a good time already by the sound of their voice. You might even know who they are already. We have Christian and Samantha Delgado. Welcome, guys, to the podcast for the very first time.
Yeah,
Yeah, thank
thanks
you.
for having us.
Thanks for having us.
Well, want to give the folks a little bit of a get-to-know-you episode. I know I plan on having you back in the future for sure. But let's just start with the basics. How long have you two been married?
We look at each other like, who's going to answer it? It'll be 5 years at the end of next month.
Yeah.
Oh, wow. Wow. Time has flown.
It has.
COVID feels like you added like 2 or 3 years to that.
Yeah.
It was 2018, the fall of 2018.
Yeah,
Yes.
it was. I feel like half of that was COVID.
Oh,
It was. Wow. Yeah, that is
did it
true.
put some trials into your marriage, COVID?
No, it actually was a blessing for us. I mean,
Yeah.
in the sense that we felt like we were able to spend time together.
Yeah. I mean, I fully did not expect you to actually launch into problems that you might have had.
Yeah, actually, let's talk about it.
Yeah.
No, I actually think it was really fun because so much of like what we both separately do collided in that time frame. And so it was great to actually get to work not alongside one another, but actually with one another. Yeah, I think we had a ton of fun during COVID.
I mean,
honestly.
yeah, when I was making puppets with
Yeah.
Grace Kids Live, and
Oh, yeah.
I
And I'm
was
cutting
sitting
out
on the kitchen
and
counter.
I'm filming and we're moving. It was a ton of fun.
Yeah, it was a lot of fun.
We were exercising all sorts of muscles that we had never had to exercise
Or
before.
we'll never exercise
yeah,
again.
never again.
Yeah,
Oh.
now they're stashed somewhere that I don't even remember. But I kept them because I was like, oh, what a memory.
Well, let's go back then before you met, before marriage, before your little bambino, which we'll talk about here in a few minutes. Let's talk about, Samantha, we'll start with you. Like, where were you raised? How were you raised? Tell us about your family. Lead us all the way up to when you met Christian.
Yeah, I did not grow up in the church whatsoever. I didn't even start coming to church, I want to say, until 6th grade. My family had come to grace. But I think being non-believers or not even knowing, my mom grew up a Jehovah's Witness. My dad grew up Catholic. And so just coming to grace, I think, was a lot of Bible that my parents had never even opened, if we're being completely honest. And so I think it was overwhelming to them. And so they left, went elsewhere in the valley to church. My dad started going to master's, got his biblical studies degree. And then my dad found the Lord, my mom found the Lord. And then in that time, they were like, okay, we need to move on. We need somewhere that's like really feeding us the word. And so we came back to Grace, and I've been here since middle school, on and off. I was attending a youth group elsewhere for many years.
Yeah, I remember that. Yeah.
I still consider you one of my 2 youth pastors.
Folks, I am both the reason why she left and the reason she returned.
You're even the reason I'm working here. You're the reason I'm married to Christian. You're like everywhere in there.
Okay.
But then came back after I found the Lord in high school and have been here ever since.
So do you know or do you remember why your parents, with their backgrounds in Catholicism and being a Jehovah's Witness, how they ended up?
Yeah. My mom did not want to practice Jehovah's Witness whatever.
Doctrine, life, yeah.
Once she came out of my grandparents' house. And so she was open to anything. My dad was a Catholic, but honestly, he was a holiday Catholic. So I had my first communion. Right. But apart from that, like, I couldn't even tell you anything I did. I don't even think we were like Christmas or Easter Catholics. We were like, just let's mark it on the sheet that we're Catholics. And so I honestly don't even know if they knew that there was a difference between Catholics and Christians. I think they Googled a church.
Most people don't.
Grace Baptist popped up and they showed up.
Don't know what that Baptist thing means, but
let's just show. And so I think they came and they liked it here. I think they were just like, what are they talking about?
Do you remember what year that was?
It was even before David. And so if it was, it was,
2000.
I want to say like 16 years ago.
Yeah, wow.
And the second that my dad started going to masters and like was being fed so much information, he was like, okay, the church we're at is not feeding us this. We need to go. And the first church he thought of was Grace.
So then exposure to the things of Christ and the church, that was around 6th grade for you. Were you brought to Christ within that time frame?
I would say I was brought to Christ summer of my 10th grade year. So summer going into 11th grade was the year that I was saved.
What were the circumstances around that?
So my uncle is a pastor, and we've always grown up going to his house. And every summer...
Why are you laughing?
Because growing up not being a believer, it was terrifying. Because you would go in and he would make you watch like Left Behind films. And so imagine like my 5th grade self being like, ooh, let's watch, I don't even know, whatever my 5th grade self wanted to see. And he'd be like, you heathen. And he'd put on Left Behind. And I would call my parents every summer, every time we were there for a week, calling them crying. Telling them we need to go to church or else we're going to hell. You guys, he said that you don't love Jesus. This man is here to die for us. Calling them crying. And so after my parents were saved, I was never against the faith. I just had so many questions. And I sat with him on the couch one day and he was talking to my sister. And he was like, if you ever want to accept Christ, like, I'll pray with you. I'll talk with you. I'll answer your questions. And I just like turned to him and I was like, I don't know if she does, but I do. I want to accept him. And that was like the moment that my life changed.
And you began to just developing your faith. And I remember then coming back to Grace and
And from then on, here we are.
Here we are. Christian?
Yes, sir.
Now you have a different story to tell.
Mm-hmm.
You have a different story and we all want to hear it.
Yeah.
You were not raised in the church.
I was not raised in the church.
Not raised in the church.
I was raised around the church. So I come from a divorced home. My dad lived in the valley. So I would say I grew up half Valley, half Santa Clarita Valley. So San Fernando and Santa Clarita. Dad lived over there. Mom lived here. I was primarily living with my mom. And Sundays, I grew up going to church sometimes. And sometimes she would put me and take me to Awana. I vaguely remember those. But for the most part, that was the only exposure to Christianity that I've had. And then I wasn't saved until December of 2014. So I was 18 years old.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You both went to the same high school?
We did.
We did.
Did
Went
you
to
know each
Saugus.
other in
We
high school?
did.
Did you like each other in
We
high school?
did.
We did like each other in
Okay.
high school.
There we go. I mean,
I mean, he graduated a year after me. So he graduated 2013. I graduated 2014.
but you didn't start dating till much later.
We didn't because he was not a believer.
Yeah.
That's right.
I was, but I still, like, I had just become a believer. And so everything in me was like, I can help this bad boy not be a bad boy.
So this was 2014 when you started pursuing her.
Mm-hmm.
So the first time was 2013
No.
when we were in high school.
Oh, yes.
The first,
And you were like, not having it.
Well, I was like, yeah, totally. Let's start dating. I'm totally up for it. My dad was like, I don't even want to meet this boy. It's not happening. He's not a believer.
Sam,
Don't
I
waste
can
my
hear Sam saying
time.
that.
The only reason we ever met each other, we didn't even meet each other in high school. We met each other at the youth group that she was going to. And I had friends who invited me to that youth group.
But you weren't following Jesus.
No, I wasn't following.
You were just
Oh.
going there for the girls.
To be honest, I was just going there to feel good.
What do you mean?
Like I was just going there because I feel like I adopted this mentality that church is good for you. And so
Oh.
even though I didn't really care about it,
So just to check some
Yeah.
moral therapeutic box and just
Exactly.
be like, hey, I'm a good person because I go to church.
exactly.
Interesting.
Meanwhile, I'm like head of the leadership team there.
Yeah.
Yeah, well, that's actually interesting because that is not most young men's story. Like, I was raised in a Christian home.
Yeah.
I was even a professing Christian. And the only reason I went to youth group was because there were girls there.
Yeah.
Not you, Christian. You had
No, I
higher nobility there, bro.
I mean, not necessarily higher nobility. I would say that I was trying to fulfill a sense of self-righteousness that obviously wasn't satisfying. And so I would go to church so that I can say that I checked off this box.
like a way
I
to
did
pay
good.
penance.
Almost in a way. I think I think the therapeutic term really
Mhm.
encompasses what I was trying to accomplish.
Did you feel religious growing up?
No, and that's the funny thing. I did not feel religious growing up. But yeah, so I was going to youth group, and because I had friends who were going to that youth group, and then that's when I met Samantha.
Right.
But I was going through in my high school senior year, I was going through a lot with my stepdad passing away,
Yeah.
and so he had cancer.
Uh-huh.
Just had my baby brother. He's growing up. He's not even like 1 year old yet.
Yeah.
And so I was struggling between having that happen in our house, and like we lost everything. We lost our house, had to downsize our house because he passed away.
Mhm.
He was making all our financial stability to keep everything going. And so I just remember like,
How
wow,
old were you?
my whole life is changing.
How old are you when that happened?
I was 17.
17.
Yeah, I was
Yeah.
17. So then that's when my friends who were like, yeah, you should just come to church with us. I was like, okay.
Now, when you said that you liked each other in high school, did you then like pick right back up once you ran into each other at church? Because my
A year
understanding,
later?
yeah, my understanding is that you got into the church scene, you saw Samantha, you remembered Samantha, and she was going like, yeah, I know, but I'm a different person now, so sorry, until you love Jesus, we can't date. Do I have that wrong?
No, I mean, you're exactly right. So, I mean, I was kind of a jerk to Samantha. So in the first time I was playing this whole, you're too good for me, so I can't like pursue you. And then,
But also,
I was acting a fool. And then she was like, okay, you're a fool. I don't
Do you want to open up about that on a podcast? Or?
I think it was just a lot of like playing with heartstrings.
Yes.
Where it's like, I really like you, but you're too good for me. You're too good.
What, now,
So let me go and date these girls.
did you really believe that, or are you just trying to mess with her?
I genuinely thought that she was way too good for me.
Christian,
I
she
did.
totally is, bro.
I know. It still is.
Everyone listening to the podcast is like, oh yeah, of course.
No, and I
You married up,
genuinely,
bro. It's good.
I know, praise the Lord.
Yeah.
And I genuinely did believe that back then. And so it was funny. I always told her like I could see myself marrying you like in the future.
Yeah.
But like,
Right.
listen to that. You're a 16-year-old girl. The guy who like is telling you, I could see myself marrying you in the future, but I'm not going to date you. And you're like, what is happening? But then you like find out that Monday from his best friend that he like went on a date with another girl. And you're like, what's happening?
Honestly, I feel exposed in this podcast.
Samantha and I were
funny.
talking like a few weeks ago. We knew exactly how we were going to corner you. In this.
I love that.
No, I'm joking.
That's great. But so then you're right, Aaron. A year later, I come back. I somewhat mature, and I ask for an apology, and then I ask her on a date. We don't go on a date, but then all of a sudden, in the Lord's timing, we become friends again along the way.
Around now, hold on. Let me hit the pause button. Around this time, are you considering yourself? Looking back, maybe no, but at the time, were you considering yourself a Christ follower?
Mm-mm.
No. Just religiously curious.
I actually think you were, because I remember it came to the point that I was like, you're still not a believer. I'm not dating you. And he came back at me and was like, who are you to tell me I'm not a believer? And I was like, well, what's the fruit? He's like, I don't have to read my Bible to be a believer.
Maybe that's just he thought he was, but he actually wasn't.
That could be it.
Right?
Yeah, and I think that was the major contention that I had. Was I was telling her, I'm not going to change who I am because of your beliefs. But what's the major difference between me saying intellectually, oh, I believe in this dude Jesus, but actually having a relationship with Jesus? And that's what she confronted me with.
Well, what she, I mean, I'm just going to name it. What she confronted you with is you pursuing Jesus on his terms versus you pursuing him on yours. You were pursuing Jesus on your own terms.
Yes.
Right?
Yeah.
And it's like, well, look, if you're doing that just to scratch a religious sensibility that you have, or to pay penance, or to date a girl, or whatever, Jesus is not Lord.
Exactly.
Right? Yeah.
Yeah, and so that is how the Lord totally changed my heart, is because when she confronted me with that, that's when I started actually digging into the Bible and reading a book that she gave me.
What book was it?
Something by Kyle Idleman.
Yeah, so I mean, Kyle Idleman, it's the book. I'm not a fan, but that's essentially his main point.
Yeah, right.
Is that we tend to look at Jesus as a celebrity whose word we can be distant from, but we can like him.
Sure.
And I would say that was me. I liked Jesus. I liked the idea of who Jesus is, but when he says that he is the way, the truth, and the life, that he is Lord, that has a bearing on my life that I need to either take responsibility for or I reject that.
So name the year. Around what time on the timeline? Around what year was this starting to come together for you? 2015, 2016?
December of 2014.
2014. Okay,
2014.
So before then. Got you. Interesting. Yeah. I do remember the first time that we kind of joke about this often. First time I saw you.
Yeah.
Dude, it was the college group here at Grace, and Christian was like staring me down. I was like, I think this guy wants to fight me.
Yeah.
It was like this awkward sort of like, I don't know what it was, but like, you just kept looking at me. I'm like, well.
I was skeptical of everyone. Well, I mean, now imagine
you're a big dude, so it was like, oh man, we're gonna go.
but I mean, I'm always skeptical of people, and I thank the Lord that that's a lot different now for me. But walking into a church that this is a whole new world now that I'm seeing, because now I understand who I am in relation to who Jesus has made me to be.
Yeah.
And now that I'm a new creature in him. And so I'm like, okay, I got to jump into this world. And so I'm going to church, and there's just a ton of people that I just don't know. Nor did I know that they were Christians if I knew them in like high school.
Which was also very different for you, because Christian's always been like the popular kid in high school. Like he could walk through campus and everybody knew who he was. And so I think for him stepping into a realm where not only was he nobody, but like nobody even turned an eye, where he like did not stand out. And obviously, except for the fact that like he could take people in a fight. That that I think for him, I think he was overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And honestly, coming in after I had expressed to him like what it truly meant to follow Jesus, I woke up the next morning and I was like, man, I don't even like him. That's what the Lord wanted me to do this whole time. That's amazing.
Samantha, at what point did you feel like there was genuine faith?
It wasn't until Gabe Garcia met with him, because I was like, Gabe, I think this guy's here for me. I'm really over this dude. I want nothing to do with him. Can you meet with him? I've already met with him. I've already given him a book. And Gabe was like, I got you. I got you. He met with him, came back to me and was like, that dude loves Jesus. And I was like, what? I didn't even know this. And he's like, no.
Now, why do you think you weren't seeing that?
I think I didn't want to see it.
Okay.
Like, I think in my eyes, I was like, dude, I fell for this guy twice. Both times he wasn't a believer. I'm not trying to date him anymore. I truly have no feelings for him anymore. I just want to start college, like follow the Lord, go to masters. Like I was like, I have this entire plan and you're kind of messing with it with your
So
that was a big wrench.
So then as soon as it became apparent that he was following Jesus and he was bearing fruit.
I had to see it for myself. So I still didn't believe it. I was like, nah.
Okay, so that's the question.
So
what did you see?
It wasn't until I started seeing him more at college groups that I was like, oh, he's consistent. And other guys would come up and be like, hey, have you guys met Christian? He's really awesome. He's a new believer. And so this entire time, he's still pursuing me. And I'm like pushing away. And so one Saturday night service, I was working. And I guess he'd gone up and introduced himself to my parents without me there, without me even knowing. And so much so that my parents liked him that they wanted to defend him, so they didn't tell me. They just were like, we're just not going to tell Samantha that this guy came up and introduced himself. And so it wasn't until he texted me that he was like, hey, I got to meet your parents. And I was floored. I was like, how dare you?
I'm thinking about that. I don't know why I texted you that. I probably shouldn't have.
But like there was like countless people that were just coming to me like, this guy loves Jesus.
Well, I think that's the thing. You begin to trust the word of other people that he was living the life of Christ
really
apart
was.
from you. It had nothing to do with you. He was doing it on
And
his
I think
own.
that's what I needed because so much of it was like me feeling like leading him to the water where I was like, no, like this is important. This matters. And I never wanted to be with somebody where I felt like I was leading them. Because I feel like that's something I do often in my life. And so I was just like, that's not what I want.
So then how did this go down? Once you suspect that actually it was genuine faith, did you like text him like, hey, I think I'm ready now. Let's start dating?
Invited
how did that work?
him over along with all of the other college people after a college group on a Thursday night. And I only invited him because my friend was like, you have to start inviting him to these things. He's like the only guy that's not being invited. Like, just
I was the outcast.
and it was my fault.
You weren't inviting him because
I was not inviting him. Like solely because I wanted nothing.
I didn't know that.
I think part of it was just the idea that I was like, dude, he could get me again and I'm not falling for this again. So it was just like, if it leads you, cut off the arm. He was the arm. And so I finally invited him. And it wasn't until like watching him engage with everyone else, because it was the first time I'd actually gotten to see him hang out with people versus just hearing how he did it, that I was like, this guy's different. And all I did was walk up and I grabbed his hand.
Yeah.
Seriously?
Literally, no joke. That's exactly what I did.
Like, we're talking, you interdigitated or you just
I went
palm
up
to
and
palm?
held his hand.
And then how long did you linger there?
I think we just held hands.
Yeah.
For,
it was like we were playing a game.
We were playing a game.
I need a little bit of a context.
We were all playing a game.
Because the way it sounds is like Christian's standing there, you come up behind him, grab his hand, and you both stand there for an indeterminate amount of time.
Honestly?
Yes, that's exactly what happened. That's exactly what happened.
What was going on around you?
Everybody was playing
a game.
Werewolves, which seems to be like was the college game at the time.
Sure.
And so we're all in a circle. It was a massive circle. And so honestly, anybody could have just like seen us playing this game.
Christian, in that moment, the world stopped.
It was the weirdest thing that happened. I was not expecting it. I was just like, oh, okay. All right.
I wonder if everyone else around you was like, what is going on over there?
But everyone, because everyone knew her, everyone knew kind of who I was before.
And everyone was telling me, give him a chance.
Yeah.
And so that was Samantha's nonverbal cue. Here's
it
your
was.
chance.
It was a nonverbal cue.
I made the first move. That's all I'm saying.
A sweaty handhold. How long do I have to do this for before you get the point?
Yeah, and then it wasn't too long where I had dinner with her family, and then we were friends.
And dude, let's just name it. Sam Azar can cook.
Yes, he can.
He can make food.
He can.
It is delicious.
He can. It's my favorite thing to try to compete with him when I make a dish and Christian says it tastes better. Like I feel like I've won.
It's true.
So then, okay, how long did you date? I mean, I know, but for the listeners, how long did you date before you popped the question?
Ooh, 3 years?
We started dating February of 2015.
I actually thought it was less than that. Was it 3-4 years?
It was
It was
long
a
enough
long
that
time,
Gabe was like,
It was
guys,
too long. Yeah.
February of 2015, and we got engaged December of 2017. So
That's right.
a little over 2.5
I do remember
years.
being in competition with Gabe about who was going to do the wedding. I think Christian was pro Gabe, Samantha was pro Aaron.
It was.
And so
it was.
awkward.
he and I were gonna
And I won.
we were gonna duel, but it didn't come to that because
I love both of you.
you acquiesced.
And we did,
Gabe,
right?
if you're listening to this, I won.
And it truly was. Like, we have so many men that have, like, poured into us throughout the
Yeah.
years that we just adore. And so what a good place that we felt like we got to be in, that we were like, we can't choose.
No, that's one of the reasons I love your love story is because God utilized the church to bring it about.
He did.
Yes.
And that's not everyone's story, right? He
did.
used the discipleship efforts of Gabe Garcia and myself and youth staff and volunteers and eventually Martha Harding and so on and so forth. It's kind of a beautiful picture of what the community of faith
Once you
brings
get
about.
involved and get
Yeah, it
connected,
really did.
like, you're loved.
And that's what I'm so thankful. I mean, this church is my home. I feel like all that I've known in life now is like Grace Baptist Church.
Yeah.
But I'm just so grateful. I've had the best memories here.
Hey everybody, Pastor Allen here. Fall Festival is coming up soon on Friday, October 27th from 6:30 to 8:30 p.m. It'll be an evening full of games, music, fun, and of course, lots of candy. So come and invite your friends, family, and neighbors to this annual all-family event. You can visit our website, gracebaptist.org/fall festival, to get all the details. You can donate candy and also sign up to volunteer. We hope to see you there.
Who worked at Grace first? I can't remember.
I did.
Was it you?
Yeah.
And Landon hired you, Christian, right? Landon Miller.
Yes.
We mean
yes.
technically.
Technically, yeah.
Well, you had a huge hand in that.
Yeah. Well, because I didn't necessarily go up to Landon. I went up to you and was like, "Hey, I hear this about this position. Like, who do I go?"
Oh, that's right.
Yeah.
Because we were interns.
I do remember Landon going like, "Do you know this guy?" I'm like, "Oh, he's great. You sure about that?" I'm like,
Yeah.
Mhm.
telling you, he's awesome. And I think, obviously, your reputation became really well known in the church.
Yeah.
You were just already serving. You were already present. You were.
Yeah, I started serving in Grace Kids, and then I moved to junior high, and then
Now you're the
with
high school
Jared,
director,
and
yeah.
I'm the high school.
And then Samantha,
I came in afterwards. I was also an intern with Christian. And then
but you were with the youth.
I was with high school.
Yeah,
the
you were high
entire
school.
time.
You weren't in Grace Kids ever.
Yes, I
But
never went
I
to Grace
was
Kids.
I was serving in youth ministry first.
Yes. So I had been
with Jared.
yes.
I was
Yeah,
just
with
like,
Jared.
Yes.
No, bro, you weren't. But with Jared, you were. That's
Yes,
right, yeah.
he was with Jared. And then I was like, oh, that looks so fun. I remember serving at another church in their youth ministry, and I'm just scared. I don't know. And it wasn't until he was like, you need to. And
Yeah. Dude, I don't know if you know this, Samantha, but I'm friends with other pastors from other churches in the area. And once you returned back home to Grace, I had just to rub it in his face. I was like, "Oh, Samantha Delgado? She came to the right church."
he
She
was
came home."
he was very, very sad.
It's so funny.
We're friends. We had it was a good laugh, a good conversation.
He's a great guy.
Yeah,
And
yeah.
he was all for like me finding a place that I called home. He was all for it.
And so, brother, I'm not going to mention your name, but if you're listening to this podcast, we won.
His in-laws live
Victory.
across the street from my parents,
Oh,
and
is it
it
right?
still comes up.
Oh,
funny.
I forgot about that. That's right.
Still comes up. And then as I was serving in an intern, it wasn't until you,
Yeah.
Aaron, was like, I remember so vividly. It was during a recall. You walked up to me, and I had been like running around everywhere. And you came up, you leaned in, and you were like, I'm going to hire you. And I was like, ah.
Well, I remember telling Burkholder, I was like, I'm going to go ask Samantha when she's ready to start getting paid for what she's done. I do remember his recall.
I kind of remember those conversations too.
Yeah. And
Yeah.
a month later, I was hired.
Sometimes I say things and I have no reason as to why they should come about. So it's kind of like this uncharted confidence that
Yeah.
I'm glad it worked out.
I mean, you had changed, truly being an intern and working in youth ministry is what
Mhm.
had changed my entire trajectory of what I was going to do with my life.
And now you're working with Martha in women's
Mhm.
ministry.
Yeah.
Folks, she's going to hate that I'm about to say this, but Samantha recently
Oh, no.
went to it. No, this is good. This is good. How would you describe this? What was it? It was a teacher's
cohort.
guild. It was a cohort, a teacher's
of
cohort.
Bible teachers.
And there's a recording that she sent me of she did a teaching for the group of women that were there. How many women? About 20-something women? And it was excellent.
Thank you.
She's a good Bible teacher.
Thank you.
Christian, you're an excellent Bible teacher, which, again, we all know that. But not everyone knows that. You've preached in front of the congregation. You speak in front of students all the time. Not everyone knows this about Samantha.
Yes.
And so I want to make mention of that. God has gifted her. And I'm just waiting for the day, Samantha, that you agree with what God has put in you.
And honestly, I don't even think it's a lack of confidence on my part, except for that I'm surrounded by good teachers. Like Martha Harding is literally like my hero. And so when I look around and I walk up and I see you and David and Jared and I'm like my husband, and I'm like, you guys want me to teach? There's no way.
Yeah, and folks, it's not false humility. She really, she really doesn't see this. And it's like everyone else around her is going like, trust us. We know what we're talking about. We are identifying this in you. And so, no, it's kind of cool to watch the Lord develop you.
Yeah.
I'm thankful for the leadership that like values that and wants to pour into me and like push me to do these things. Because truly, without you and Martha practically forcing me to do these things, I don't think I would have even
nudge.
Yeah, but I don't think I would have ever even like dove in to see if that was a possibility for
Christian,
me.
do you just kind of allow Martha and I to do that, or do you do that yourself at home?
Honestly, I don't directly. I indirectly, because that's how I win with her, when I indirectly nudge.
Maybe you're sharing, house secrets now. Maybe.
No. She knows. She knows exactly. She knows exactly what and most of the time I just like ask questions. I just ask questions of
You
her.
can always rely upon the Socratic method to bring people out.
But he loves nothing more when I come home and I go, so I'm joining this cohort with like all the Marthas of the world. And he's like, are you? That's really cool. Are you excited?
Are you excited about that?
Yeah. What do you have to
want
do? Oh, you have to prep and teach? What are you teaching?
I don't sound that condescending. Do I?
But I mean, like that's you sit there and you're like, oh, he's getting somewhere.
What did
with
you?
this.
It was a First Peter.
It was Ephesians 2.
That's right.
Yep.
That's right.
Ephesians 2. But I love my job. I love my role. It's changed a lot in the years, and I am so thankful to the Lord to see like where I am.
It's been a real blessing watching the Lord develop you both as followers of Christ, but then also independent ministers of Christ, and now as a married team in ministry together for the cause of Christ.
Yeah.
What's it like working together? I mean, do you have like certain rules like, hey, we're not going to talk about work at home, or do you not have any guidelines on that?
Is I actually think when we first got married, we were like, we're not going to talk about it.
Yes.
And then I think it actually became a healthy way of us like venting or getting to like share or getting to like...
Stop. What do you mean venting?
Like when we come home and it was like a tough day and you're like, hey, we actually understand.
Oh, gotcha.
So since we're both in the ministry world, it's not like he's coming home to somebody has no idea what the ministry is like. Yes. And so he actually can talk to somebody who understands, and I'm not just like, oh, I'm sorry. Or he's like, oh, I'm sorry, that sounds difficult. But instead he's like, well, he can also offer like constructive criticism where he's like, no, I see that.
Yes,
like I understand that. Or what if you think that is a better way to do it?
Yeah.
Or and so I think it's actually been really helpful for us to get to like sulk in that, where I'm like, you understand? I wish you would just take my side all the time.
But also, I mean, I think we are well balanced in how we either give constructive criticism or just to be an ear to vent to one another. But I would say a big part of like the reason where I think I do such a great job at my job is because I get to pick at her ear all day. Mm-hmm. And she welcomes that because like Samantha's creative. She loves youth ministry. And so now that I get to be like, hey, is this a good idea? And then she'll either be straight up and tell me, no, that's an awful idea. Or like, oh, well, how about instead of this, you do something similar, but add this into it.
You're a real power couple. Like the way that you both think and approach situations is unique. But it's like, Christian, you are wiser, I think, than your typical, how old are you now?
I'm 28.
I think you're just kind of like an old soul, right?
I am, yeah.
And sometimes old souls need to be kind of nudged in particular directions. And Samantha is that tool that I've seen, like
Yes.
just
I'm a torch,
Yeah.
a flame.
and then as a torch,
It is.
Sometimes the torches need a little bit of a quelling, a little bit of a
We do that. We do that really well.
Yeah.
But we actually love working together. I was sad when I left and like went to women's for a huge part of the reason just being that like I don't work, I don't share an office wall with my husband anymore.
Yeah.
And so we have truly loved getting to like have a hand in one another's ministries.
Yeah.
It's different now that I'm in women's.
Well, I just remember with the leading up to your marriage, the premarital, my concern was like, I don't want this place to destroy you.
Yeah.
I don't want to cause your marriage to implode. And that's, again, is a testimony to how well you all work together and complement one another. And just God's grace for sure. It's not always been easy. We know ministry is not always easy.
No.
But the way that He has gifted you to offset and to complement strengths and weaknesses, it's a beautiful thing to watch.
I think it's because her and I have the same mindset of this is God's people, and we are called to love and serve these people even in the midst of our own frustrations or our own situations or circumstances that we find ourselves in. And so long as we have that mindset of like God has called us to this people, like we can persevere through anything. Like we got each other's back. And I know that the Lord is working through whatever is going on, and all we have to do is be faithful.
Can I ask about little Grayson?
Yes.
Oh, the boy.
The new
boy.
You already gave him a nickname, Bambino.
Bambino, yeah.
You did. That's the first.
That is the first.
That's my problem. I told you earlier. I tend to just give people nicknames.
Yeah.
I didn't ask Grayson's permission. I didn't ask your
You didn't
your
ask
permission.
Grayson Aaron.
Grayson Aaron.
Yeah, I gave him a middle name.
You did.
What's his real name?
After
Grayson Patrick.
After his father.
Delgado.
Yeah.
Yeah, but Grayson Aaron sounds really great too.
It actually
does
does.
sound
It does. It does.
Grayson Patrick sounds very long,
Grayson Aaron is.
Well, tell us about the Bambino.
Dude, he's honestly the biggest joy
Yeah,
we have.
that kid is chill. Until he's not.
Wait,
Until he's not,
chill?
for sure.
You know
I
what's
know.
funny is you see him in that stroller, and so he's chill.
He's
but
just chill.
He is such a. He is truly We
He's his
talked about this
mother.
yesterday. He is me.
He's his mother.
His personality
That is
is
God's gift to you.
through and
Amen.
through.
Here, Samantha, I will give you.
It is, and you know what's funny is that's why I didn't want a girl, is because I was like, we don't need another me in this world. Like, let's not. And then the Lord was like, here, let me humble you even more. And let me give you and a son. He is the happiest, most go-lucky, energetic, but fiery child.
Oh yeah.
Stubborn.
He is so stubborn. It's unreal.
Yeah.
Remember, you were telling me stories about him like just flinging his back out,
Yes, arching
just
it
arching it.
so that you won't pick him up.
Yeah.
Or he doesn't like to be helped.
Yeah, right. Yeah, he doesn't like any help with anything. So like I want to hold his hand as he's walking along the sidewalk, and then he just goes like, nah, and he shakes my hand away
His
from
grunt,
him.
he does the grunt anytime it's like, leave me alone or stop. And so if you're like trying to help him pick up something with a fork, he goes, ah. But he is truly so much fun.
Yeah.
Gosh, yeah. How old is he now? He's
15 months.
wow.
Yeah. So he has, I would say he has my strength. And I'm not tooting my own horn. I'm strong.
Yeah.
He has my strength, but with like all the personality of Samantha, which is just a great combination because he's determined.
He's
He
so
will
determined.
he will climb up on that chair if he wants to climb up on that chair.
And if you pull him down and pull the chair away, he will find a way to get, like he is, yeah. Christian and I have already tried to map out ways that this will manifest itself into his
Well,
teenage years.
he needs salvation.
He
right?
does.
Yes.
He needs
Our favorite
salvation.
thing is to call him a sinner. So
Well,
as he's like doing something
You're not wrong.
in public, we go,
Yes.
oh, the sinner. And everyone around us is like, but we're like, no, he's a sinner. I'm a sinner, but he
Indeed.
needs Jesus.
indeed.
He-
Yes, absolutely.
Yeah.
Well, we got to be landing the plane here. How could the Grace family be praying for the Delgado family?
Yeah. I think one of the things that we could always use prayer for, especially in this season, is navigating parenthood. That's still fresh for us. We're still learning, and that's a joyful process that we are learning. But if you could just continue to pray that we would be parents who show grace, to our kid, even when he is acting like a little sinner that he is.
Yeah.
But also that we can show and model to him what it means to love Christ and love God's people as he's going to be around this church, for the years to come.
Amen.
So that's always on our heart.
Anything to add?
Just that we continue to, we love the opportunity that our child gets to grow up in a church where he is loved well and is cared for and is known. And so we just pray that we steward that well. We don't want to raise a child who feels like he can walk around campus.
Against all that. Yeah.
And so that's constantly our like the thing that's on our mind.
Right.
But we also pray that he can appreciate the opportunity that he has in having his parents be working at church and being here with us.
Yeah.
So
Christian and Samantha, you are a blessing to so many families, my family being one of them. And how many years, both of you, at Grace so far?
I think I just celebrated 7.
I celebrated 6. So
I mean, you literally have watched so many of our kids grow up, right, already into their teenage years.
Yeah.
And so you are a big part of so many lives.
Thank you.
And we love you. And thanks for sitting down with me on this podcast. We're certainly going to have you back. I was telling Samantha earlier, I said this is just going to be a get to know you really as a couple and kind of as a ministry partnership. But like moving forward as we have you on there, there's going to be some targeted stuff that
we look forward to that.
Well, yeah, absolutely. No, things of life and the ministry that that people want to hear you speak into, okay?
Amen. Let's do it.
Love you guys. Thanks for being here.
Thank you.
Love you.
Well, everybody, thank you so much for streaming in. It's been a real delight sitting down with Samantha and Christian. Hopefully you'll be able to join us next week as we sit down with David W. Haig. Thanks for streaming. Thank you so much for joining us today. Make sure to subscribe to Magnify Podcast so you never miss an episode. If you enjoyed this episode, please share it with others. Post about it on social media or leave a rating and review. We would love to hear from you, so if you have any questions you'd like to ask in our mailbag, you can email them to magnify@gracebaptist.org, and we will answer them on the show. Thank you so much for streaming.